Let the record show that I am here. Supervisor Steen is excused. Supervisor Bashand is here. Supervisor Hagan, Dr. Hall, Mr. Lamb, and Miss Rudy are present. And just as an announcement, if you don't all know this, I mean, most of us do, this is Chris Corpola's last Health and Human Services Board meeting. She's probably attended 900.
A lot.
A lot. Thank you for being here, and we are going to miss you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I do realize you retired one time before and it can happen again.
No, I never quite made it last time.
No, you did. No, you didn't. You failed retirement the first time. You did.
Either, so I'm still working on it.
Okay, we have minutes before us from our meeting from June 26th. Any clarification needed? I need a
Yes.
motion to.
Got a clarification?
Yes, certainly, Supervisor Hagan.
Thank you. Steve Carlson's name is spelled wrong. Just want to correct that.
Thank you. I did not see that. Yes, you're correct. Let that change. All right, I need a motion to approve the minutes from June 26th as amended.
I'll motion.
Supervisor Hagan moves. Dr. Hall seconds. Any additions or corrections? Additions or corrections? If not, all in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you, Bill. The minutes from June 26th are approved. Do we have any public comment? Okay, next meeting date, what's on your agenda is not correct. We need to have a public hearing on the DHS budget. And we have a budget workshop for the board. So we decided to move the meeting up to August 21st. That's 1 week earlier. Does that work for you? Does that work for everybody? August 21st, not August 28th. All right. All right. And we have guests here, and I think they can introduce themselves, but I think we should introduce ourselves to you because I don't think you know all of us. I'm Diane Morehouse. I'm the chair.
Hi, I am Andrew Hagan. I represent District 22, which is like the fairgrounds area in Anderson.
You know Becky and Paula.
I'm Polly Rudy. Who doesn't know how to use this apparently.
There we go. Polly Rudy, community member.
Michelle Bashan with District 11, which is just out south of Menominee.
And on the phone, I'm Bill Lamb, and I'm a community or citizen member. Good evening.
Hi, Bill. And
Hi,
for
Bill.
everybody here, I'm Jessica Christensen. I'm here in place of Greg Quinn with the Dunn County Veteran Service Office.
We're glad you're here.
Hi.
All right. Oh, I'm sorry, Alex. Dr.
It's
Hall.
okay. Dr. Alex Hall, also a community member.
All right. All right, let's go. We are going to have a presentation on the 2026 wage proposal. I don't know who's on deck. Sarah? Okay. Do you want to come up? And you can introduce yourself, Sarah, because not everybody knows you. Just about everybody in the world does, but
I need it, apparently.
All right, thank you for having us crash your meeting today.
oh, you're welcome.
My name is Sarah Stansberry. I'm the Talent Development Manager. I work in the Human Resources Department and oversee performance management, training and development, leadership development, and then recruitment and retention. So I'm here today to talk about some revisions that we've made to our performance management process and also to talk about how those intersect with the proposal for wages for 2026. I know it's probably not the first time that many of you in the room have heard this, but
Yes, there's some. And will you take questions as you're proceeding, or do you want us to wait until the end?
either as we're going is totally fine.
All right,
Feel
fine.
free
Thank you,
to
Sarah.
raise your hand or pop in with a question. All right, so let's start with performance management. We have been working on revising our performance management process since January. In January, the need for investment in performance management really bubbled to the surface. We had a department head meeting, and at that department head meeting, the leaders in this county decided that they wanted to set a goal of completing 100% of performance evaluations in 2025. And as Chris has said, it was a big, hairy, audacious goal to do that, especially considering that in the 5 years previous, we had only completed 20% of evaluations per year. And so as we were looking at the performance evaluation process, we brought together different groups of department heads to talk about, are there ways that we can improve our process? Thinking that we were going to maybe make some slight modifications. And the further that we dug in, the more that we realized, actually, this isn't really working. So we kind of need an overhaul here. So we took in the feedback from department heads. We've talked to a lot of different employees, employee groups. We've worked with the employee relations work group. I've done a lot of research on best practices kind of in the labor landscape in general. And what we found is that annual evaluations don't actually accomplish what we wish they would. And what's actually needed is regular, ongoing, meaningful feedback from managers to employees. I think the most powerful statistic that's out there is from Gallup that says that employees who receive that regular feedback are 3.6 times more likely to be engaged at work. And we know that if people are engaged at work, we're more likely to retain them. And so at the end of the day, this is a retention issue. So our goals with this new process are to have that regular feedback. We also know we needed a system when we were looking at something that was simple enough that it could be used everywhere in the county, which is not an easy feat. We know that our operations really vary depending on what department you're in. And also balanced the need for accountability, so some type of oversight of how this process was working. And really, at the end of the day, making the evaluation process uncomplicated enough that instead of managers and employees being burdened with tasks to do, that they can focus on the conversations that actually help develop them. We've done our satisfaction survey for 2 years in a row now, and both years, the things that have bubbled to the surface as needs and areas that we can improve include, I have regular check-ins with my manager holds employees accountable, and my annual performance evaluations help me identify areas for improvement and growth. And so we know that this is an area that we need to invest significantly in. So we launched a new process starting July 1st. We're kind of mid-swing into our first go-round at this. So what we have established as our new practice is to have performance check-ins 4 times a year. Employees very often have more check-ins than that with their manager. In a lot of departments, it's weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, kind of just depends on how many direct reports and where folks are situated in the organization. But the official performance conversations happen once a quarter, on or about January 1st, April 1st, July 1st, October 1st. And how this process works is the manager preps for the conversation, and that might include looking at past performance information. It might include meeting with other managers on the team. It might include asking the employee to provide some self-reflection. Then the manager and the employee meet, and then only after they meet do they fill out a form in NeoGov, which is where all of our employee forms are housed, where we try to house them. And that form is very simple. It basically has like name, job title, hire date up at the top, a performance rating, which we'll talk about, and then a space for a narrative. The narrative is really, really meant to capture the conversation. So not just what did the manager say to the employee, but also what did the employee share back. And so if there were things that they had to come to consensus on, or things maybe that they disagreed on, we would expect all of those perspectives to be in the narrative in the form. Once the form is complete, there's visibility to it, so it can be seen. HR can run reports on it. We've already run our first report to see how it's going, and we've got about half of them back. So managers have until once the form launches. So this first one launched July 1st. Managers have until August 15th, so a 45-day window to have the conversation and fill out the form. We've gotten about half of them back so far, and they are as expected. I think so far, so good. We've got, I think, employees kind of falling in the buckets that I would expect in terms of performance ratings, which we'll talk a little bit about. We do plan to audit these forms on an ongoing basis. So looking at, are there areas where managers need continuing training or support to have these effective conversations? Are there particular departments where this is going really well? And what are they doing that's making it go so well? Or are there particular departments where we've got ratings that don't seem to maybe match what we would expect? And then kind of doing a deep dive to discover more about what that's about. Any questions so far?
Supervisor Bashan.
I don't want to assume, but you don't have it up there. I'm going to guess the employee can also see it once complete.
Yes.
Okay.
Though.
But.
Yes, the way that we designed this was that employees would be able to see the form when it's complete. We did testing around that, and it's not, that function isn't working. So we've got the highest tier support at NeoGov working on figuring out what exactly is broken. But we are working on making sure that the visibility is there. That's something that we feel is important also. Managers can like print a copy for an employee. And something else that I know I've heard from several managers, and I just did this myself, is after having the meeting with the employee, a lot of managers are sending the narrative to the employee and saying, this is what I took from our conversation. Do you have anything that you would like added? Is this also what you understood? And giving that chance to respond that way. So even though it's that feedback isn't an official part of the form, we would still say that's a best practice and something that we want for people to be doing. And actually, that's an idea that came from KT. So thank you.
Supervisor Hagan.
Thank you. This can be a simple yes, no question. I was just curious. This is very employer to employee centric, which is fine. I was wondering, is there a system in the department that has a way for the employee to submit like how they think their area is doing, their department's doing or whatnot, like a voice of the employee type system or something like that?
I can't give you a simple yes, no. I wish I could.
Okay, all right.
Not within the form itself. We are planning on hosting some town halls in January to see how this process is going. I will also say that in the satisfaction survey, we try to keep the statements the same year to year so that we can gauge baseline,
Sure.
but I intend to have a very specific portion about how this process is going related to the new performance process. And we do break that out by department. We're actually in process of meeting with department heads over the next month about their specific results. So we will get that information.
All right, great, thank you.
Go ahead, Sarah. The other questions? Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay. All right. So the white sheet that you have in front of you, it's got colors on the back of it. That's the one I'm referring to. It's the performance check-in guide. This guide was provided to managers. All of the Dunn County management staff went through a training in May, a 2-hour training on this new performance process, and also how to effectively have these conversations. This guide was provided as kind of a list of best practices of if you were to ask me what a performance conversation would entail, it would hit on these things. And not necessarily that managers have to use this, because we do understand that in some areas like NDC or the sheriff's office, they have separate performance rating materials that are connected to like state statute. And so we want them to keep doing that. So this guide is really meant to be, if you're looking for where do you start assessing performance and what would we say the best practice is, this is what we would say that would be. This has also been provided to all employees as well, so that they know what types of things their managers will be looking at when they're looking at their performance. So at the top of that page are performance ratings. We had a 5 rating system. We're moving to a 3 rating system. I think I'm maybe a broken record lately for saying no perfect systems. Some people want a 2 rating system. Some people want a 10 rating system. And if you ask everyone in this room, we would all have 3 different answers. So we're moving to a 3 rating system, and we think this is the best compromise of everything that we've heard. So the ratings are exceeds expectations. This is someone whose performance really goes above and beyond. It's someone who's demonstrating initiative, innovation, adding value. What we've made clear to managers is that we believe every role within the county has the ability to exceed expectations, and that exceeding expectations needs to be something that's attainable. So one thing that we've heard from employees is, well, my manager doesn't give 5s, or my manager doesn't give the top rating. And we would say that's not aligned with our philosophy, that it needs to be achievable, not necessarily meaning that it's common or even usual, but that it is something that you can reach for and can do. Meets expectations is performance that's consistently meeting expectations of the role across all the key areas that are found in the job description. Someone who's dependable, competent, they're an effective contributor. This is where we would love to see everyone be. We've said this is like getting 100%, and exceeding expectations is like getting 110%. The individual may occasionally exceed expectations. The key here is with what frequency, right? Is it here and there, or how are they performing most consistently? So that was part of the training with managers. There may be areas for growth in either exceeds or meets expectations. Everyone has something that they can learn. What we're saying is in these areas, there are no performance concerns and nothing that requires improvement. Needs improvement is a performance rating where there's gaps. There are performance concerns in one or more critical areas. They maybe are recurring, they're significant, they're having an impact, and performance cannot continue on this way. And if it does, we would be looking at something like a performance improvement plan or like disciplinary action. And the reason that we think that it's so important to have these ratings and to give them regularly is clear as kind. We want people to know where they stand, and we want people to know specifically and actionably what can I do to move from needs improvement to meets expectations. On the back of that page is a rubric. This is a core values rubric. The core values were adopted by the board in the fall. And we've leaned into these because these are attributes that we would see playing out in every work area in Dunn County. Everyone can show dedication. Everyone can show betterment. We've agreed on that. And so we've outlined some behavioral indicators of what we would see as this is what it would look like to need improvement in this area. This is what it would look like to meet expectations, to exceed. And not that this is an exhaustive list, but that this is a starting point for an employee and a manager to come to the table and say, this is where I see myself falling. This is where you see me falling. Let's talk about it. So it's meant to be kind of a framework piece. We've encouraged managers to take that framework and build it out for their work areas. We know, for example, ethics is going to look different in DHS than it is in the jail. And so what specifically are those things that you're looking for? The other document, before I move on, the core values rubric is also meant to show that we are not asking that an employee take on more and more and more stuff to exceed expectations every quarter or to maintain an exceed expectations rating. What we're saying is this is about how you show up for work. Are you bringing your best self to work? That's really, it's about quality over kind of quantifying what you're doing. Not that quantity is necessarily unimportant, but the other document that I've given you is frequently asked questions. These are questions that we've gotten from employees. We've made this document available to them on our employee portal, and we've done our best to answer them. We plan to build on this as well as more questions roll in. That's performance. What questions do you have?
And I'm just going to remind the committee that these are operational considerations and not policy considerations. So go ahead, Supervisor Hagan.
Thank you. Yeah, I just had a clarification question on 6A3. Pay grade plus would receive one-time lump sum bonus equaling comma for a total. Was there something missing there or?
Yes, probably. I think I maybe had to edit it. I can provide you an updated copy.
Sure, I'm assuming it would say just receives a one lump sum bonus totaling the 3.25%.
Yes,
So,
yeah. Sorry about that.
Doesn't matter.
It does, because employees are seeing it, so I need to fix it. Thank you.
Anything else? Go ahead, Sarah.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna invite Jen up to talk about wages, the fun stuff.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Hello, everyone. I'm Jenna Nutter. I'm the HR director here at the county. And I am here to talk about what we are proposing for 2026 wage increases and also how the performance management system that we just talked about may be tied to the raises for next year. One of the most significant changes that we are proposing for 2026 would be to remove what we currently call our step system. So right now we have 25 pay grades, A through W, and each position is placed on a pay grade. Within each pay grade, there are 11 steps. And we'll talk a little bit more about why we are proposing to remove these, but it's really about the flexibility and affordability of determining wage increases year over year. We are also proposing for the October performance check-in rating that Sarah had just talked about to be tied to the percentage increase that employees will see for 2026. And so that looks like this. We are proposing for employees that receive a needs improvement rating. Again, the key word here is needs. This is an employee that has performance concerns that they would not receive a pay increase for 2026. They wouldn't receive a pay cut or anything of that nature, but they would not be eligible for the increase. For meeting expectations, employees would receive overall 2.75%. For exceeding expectations, we're proposing that employees can receive, 3.25%, which is an additional 0.5% difference over meeting expectations. This is something that is also different. We don't currently have any sort of distinction between pay when it comes to a performance rating. We also are proposing, based on feedback from different committees and also employees, about folks that are currently at what we call now step 11, which is the max of their pay grade. Currently, they only receive the equivalent of whatever cost of living adjustment or market adjustment is applied to the pay grid. It's typically around 2%. There's really no other way for people that are at the top of their pay scale to earn anything in addition. So we are also proposing for the ability for those folks to earn compensation in the form of a lump sum if they exceed expectations. We are planning to lift the pay grades by 2.25%. So that's really kind of what we call our cost of living adjustment. And then really for meeting expectations, they move up that scale an additional 0.5%. For exceeding, they move up that scale 1%. What that looks like for the folks at the max rate is they'd receive 2.25% roughly, and they receive the difference of that in the form of the lump sum payment bonus. And that is something that employees can strive to achieve year after year, as long as it's approved by the board each year. Questions about this? Okay. What I like about 2.75% for meeting expectations is that, like right now, if I'm at a step 4 and I look at that next step up, which is step 5, that's 2.75% more. And if you were looking at that next step up and making plans for next year about what you are expecting to be paid, that really does match that number. And so we're hoping that can bring a little bit more comfort to folks with this change, knowing that it's different than what folks were possibly depending on.
Dr. Hall, microphone, please.
So forgive my ignorance. Currently with the steps, how do people go up a step? Is it based on performance evaluations? Is it just based on duration of employment? How is it currently structured?
The specific language is based on satisfactory performance. So it's very vague. And there isn't really a distinction between the rating categories, whatever we are, rolling out for our performance management system. There isn't any specific nuances.
Okay.
For
And
that.
it usually happens once a year?
Once a year. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. So really everyone right now is receiving the same increase year over year. There's a small percentage of folks that are maybe on a performance improvement plan or really struggling with performance that wouldn't be eligible for the step increase as it is now in the ordinance. But for the most part, everyone's receiving a step of 2.75% and cost of living adjustment in addition to that. So we'll talk about that. And really, I just want to back up and kind of explain why are we doing this. I actually tallied up the number of meetings that we've done. We've met with each department and we're making our way through each standing committee. I think we've had at least 23 meetings with this presentation. And we really thought it was important because we wanted to explain the why, knowing that this is a change that really is disappointing. It's different than what we're used to. It's less than what we're used to. And we realize that. And we can only try to explain why. I explained that we are proposing to remove the step system, and that's to allow flexibility. So currently, each step is fixed at a 2.75% increase between each. When we sit down each year to start to talk about what we can propose with the budget for the next year, it can be challenging for us because we're kind of locked in at that 2.75% to give a step no matter what. And then whatever else is competing with us as far as inflation, cost of living, and market comparables. Typically, I would say the county has done whatever possible to provide that step increase of 2.75%. And it's typically around a 2% cost of living adjustment overall to the wage grid as well. So that doesn't percentage out.
4.75.
Yeah, it doesn't percentage out perfectly to 4.75, but it's a roughly 4.75% increase year over year, which is, I would say, above average for an annual increase. But when we're talking about 2.75 and we're used to 4.75, that's where the disappointment comes in. As you could expect, the concern here is the fiscal sustainability of that. Roughly looking at about $2 million in addition that the board needs to find each year in order to fund this. Now that's kind of really a whole holistic number of personnel and benefits costs. We know that there are some departments that are grant funded and there's some claiming things that would offset that. So it's not strictly needing to be funded by levy. And we'll look more closely at kind of what the numbers look like over the next, well, really a look back the last 5 years and a look into the future. And we also have received data points from our employee satisfaction survey the last 2 years. Another area, in addition to the areas that Sarah had mentioned earlier, was that about a quarter of our staff are dissatisfied with compensation. That's even with about a 4.75% step increase each year. So truly, we're like, what is that about? Right? And what's been interesting about that and talking with various employees across the county, not 100%, but the majority of them really explained that they're more dissatisfied about the fact that maybe they're showing up to work and giving their all, and they see a peer that maybe is just doing the bare minimum, and they receive the same increase as them year over year. What's motivating me to continue giving it my all, right? So we really kind of identified that as a performance management issue as opposed to compensation. Obviously, with these changes and as a result of the data from the employee satisfaction survey, we knew we needed to lean into effective performance management and just across the board, really set a bar for accountability and holding people to that standard. When I talk about the concern being fiscal sustainability, one of the factors in that is, I think board members would understand that the county is only able to raise the levy by what is equal to our net new construction percentage each year. This is a graph going back to 2016 of like the percentage that the county was able to increase levy by due to net new construction. In 2025, sitting at about 1.75%. When we talk about a 4.75% for most employees, that starts to become challenging, and we'll kind of do a deep dive into that. This is a graph of the last 5 years. So going back to 2020 here, this number at the top, That's that total overall personnel and benefit cost for the county. This number here, this 212,000, is what the county received in the form of additional levy due to that net new construction. If we kind of look ahead to 2025, the board approved that 2% cost of living adjustment and a step. Where'd my cursor go? There we go. The overall cost for personnel, wages, and benefits, $49 million. That costs the county about $2 million more. So that $2 million needed to be found in order to fund the increase for 2025. And this number right here, that's the number that we received in additional levy due to net new construction. So you can see we receive an additional 126,000 and we need to find an additional 2 million. Again, this isn't perfect math. There's so many things that play into that as far as grants and claiming and whatnot, but this is overall numbers. So we looked at, okay, what would this look like if we stayed status quo year over year? So this number at the top here is representative of if in 2026, the board approved a 2% cost of living adjustment and a step. We didn't go away from steps. We kept everything the same, about a 4.75%. Our personnel costs would raise up to 51.6 million overall. That would be an additional 2.3 million that we would need to find as we try to balance the budget for 2026. This number here is kind of what the costing looks like with our proposed wage increase. So it's about 50.6 million, the difference of about 986,000. But I want to kind of jump to what things might look like in 2030. If we stayed on the same exact path that we're on with a step and a cost of living adjustment, we'd be looking at about 62 million overall for personnel costs. I think it's interesting. We flip back to look at the overall cost in 2020 being at 36 million. And then within a decade, we're almost doubling that cost. Also knowing that the additional revenue increases by about between 1.5% and 2% typically. So knowing that this is a hard change, knowing that it feels sudden, we really don't want to put ourselves in a difficult situation in trying to balance the budget for 2027 or future years, and feeling that it's necessary to make a change now. And in doing that, really wanting to value our highest performers. Right now, we don't have a mechanism to recognize them, at least with compensation, and that does risk us losing our high performers. So in a nutshell, the comparison of the options on the table, or really the main options, of course, a board member could come with something totally different. But what we are proposing here is that 2.25% market adjustment plus 0.5% for meeting expectations, or plus 1% for exceeding. This allows the flexibility for the board to identify that percentage increase for performance, right? The board could say, no, we want this to be 1% or 2%. Right now, there is not that flexibility. Right now, it's 2.75 or nothing. And in that, we also want the emphasis to be on high performers. Recognizing that there is value in years of service, the STEP system really focuses on that. And again, we find value in that, but it doesn't necessarily lean into performance or motivate high performance. So if we did nothing different, if we stayed status quo, we kept the steps, maybe we looked at a 2.25% market adjustment, then the board has the option to do a step or to not do a step. There's no in between. It's 2.75% or 0 for the performance, for satisfactory performance. So we are hoping to like meet in the middle somewhat with this proposal, so as to not maybe have to land on only providing a cost of living adjustment for next year. I think it would be really difficult for us to be able to fund a step. And we feel that this is an approach meeting in the middle as much as we
I think
can.
it's Bill. Can you mute him?
I think
I could turn.
it's up there. Okay. Yes.
So just to clarify, under the proposal, everyone gets a 2.25 market or cost of living adjustment, even those who got a needs improvement rating, or no?
No, they would not move up with the
Okay.
grid. So that what that means, if they're kind of in the middle and they need improvement, the grid moves up 2.25, they kind of start to fall lower on the pay
Okay.
scale.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions about this? Yeah.
Any other questions, Ms. Rudy?
I'm just wondering how you came to the determination of the exceeds expectation being only 0.5% more, but still less than what they would have had the year before with the step.
Right. So really, I mean, we've had that question a lot and it's a valid one. It's only 0.5% difference. Knowing that this approach is different for managers, knowing that it may not be done perfectly the first go around and it will improve over time. We didn't want that swing to be too big to like negatively impact anybody or maybe overinflate, you know. So once their base rate of pay raises, like that's forever. You know, and that's not to say they can't receive a demotion or something of that nature, but that lifts that whole group and starts to accumulate year over. I've been saying the percentages keep percentaging. So really knowing that it's not going to be perfect first go around and not wanting employees to be hugely negatively impacted if they didn't receive it, or the county looking at a higher expense if folks received a higher rating than maybe what was justified. That being said, this proposal here is flexible for the board to determine. Is 0.5% it? Is do we want it to be a greater percentage difference? I would love to be able to find a way to fund as much as possible. So I think as the board starts to talk about this more at the budget workshop and as it goes through the steps, I think this very well could continue to evolve. And again, our purpose in kind of coming around to each standing committee is so that you're not hearing it for the first time on the board floor, so you can start to think about it, reach out. I'm happy to meet individually and talk about it, wanting to make sure that everyone's fully informed before they would vote on anything like this. This is my last slide.
The Committee on Administration has approved this. And it will come to the board next Wednesday, the wage grid, not the performance evaluation system, which is, as I said, is an operational decision and not something that the board should in any way deal with.
I would kind of add clarification that this proposal does require an amendment to what is now our personnel code.
Right.
Because it has specific language about 11 steps. And so that is what the board will see for a first reading next week.
Right.
And then again for the second reading at the September meeting. Yep. By September, we will also have that concrete wage grid proposal for the board to review as well. We can't really do that any sooner because we need to wait for our health insurance renewal numbers to come in.
And we'll be looking at
Anxiously.
budgets next month.
Sure.
Anything else?
No,
Any
just
questions?
as we said, knowing that with a big change, we need to try to communicate as clearly and as often as we possibly can. We've had a lot of meetings. It's been great. Honestly, it's been a lot of time and energy, but I've been telling Sarah and Dan and Chris, like, we need to do this more often. I've been able to see employees face to face and get to know them. And it's been valuable in ways outside of wage and performance specifically. So we will continue to provide ongoing email updates. We've tried to explain the complicated approval process that is still taking place and that it may change over time. We know there's a risk with that, right? It can be really confusing. We met with you a month ago and we told you one thing and this is what's happening. We acknowledge that, but we wanted to really lean into transparency as much as possible. These committee meetings and board meetings are recorded, put on YouTube. We didn't want employees to find out that's what's happening, right? We didn't want them to watch a YouTube video and learn that for the first time. So knowing that there's a risk of confusion if this changes drastically, we just plan to continue updating. Once everything is final, really after that board meeting in November when the budget is adopted, we will work within our HR team to put together individual compensation statements to show very clearly what an employee makes in 25 and what they'll make in 26. As Sarah mentioned, planning town hall sessions for January and February. We met with our employee relations work group this morning. That's kind of a cross section of employees across the county. We really look to them to give us feedback and input and ask questions. And it was lifted up this morning that maybe we should do some listening sessions sooner than January. So we've been thinking about that. And in general, ongoing support. We've really poured into leadership training the last 2 years, really with a focus on like how to have difficult conversations or effective performance conversations with employees. It's not necessarily something we're all born knowing how to do well. It takes practice. And so we are here to try and set our managers up for as much success as possible in that way. And I think I don't want to shine the spotlight. She's not one to like the spotlight, but Sarah's done a fantastic job rolling out that development program here at the county. And it's, I think, already really moved the needle. So with that, I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jenna and Sarah. Thank you very much. And you're welcome at the Health and Human Services Board meeting anytime.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
All right, thank you. We are moving on to item 7, which is Veteran Services. Jessica, this is yours.
Hi, thank you. So speaking of YouTube videos on board meetings, I did go back and look at the past Health and Human Services board meeting just to see how Greg presents and what topics he likes to hit. So they are helpful, and I've watched them for other purposes too. But so starting with our items of interest. I know Greg kind of breaks it down local, state, and federal. Locally, it's kind of a bit heavy on Greg kind of saying what he had done in the past month. Something that I was more involved in. We did have a group. There's a local group that comes probably once every few months to clean out our excess medical supplies that we don't need, can't use, or just don't have space for. So they came and they helped clean out our area. And we also took a couple hours ourselves too, just to kind of sort some things out, make some more room. We have a volunteer that comes every Monday, and he comes and cleans and organizes our stuff. So we try to keep him happy and make sure we don't have too much stuff to get in his way. Greg also had attended a Community for Veterans Dry Hooch nonprofit meeting. They're actually a group that disbanded a couple years ago. They owned a house in town where veterans could rent there, and they disbanded, but they were still kind of holding on to that money that they had gotten from the sale of that house. And so there's been a lot of discussion on, hey, what's going to happen with that? What was the intent of those funds? I do know they met in June and they dispersed of some of the money. I know they had given a check to for the Dunn County Veterans Memorial out front, for
Okay.
$15,000. So that actually went to the VFW. They're the fiscal agent for that. So I know he's been kind of active in that because people will kind of come to us and say, well, it's a veterans organization and aren't you in charge of all the veterans? And well, not really. But we try to make sure that we are informed on things. Moving on to the state report, one of the big things that happened recently is the state budget is changing, and that is the Veterans Homeless Shelter in Chippewa Falls has lost its funding. So they're going to be closing. There was, I think, 3 total shelters, just veteran specific in the state of Wisconsin, one of them in Chippewa Falls, that will be closing as of September 30th of 2025. We've sent many people over there. It's been a really good program. It's going to be a huge loss. So we as an association too are still trying to figure out, what do we do? How can we, work together to help serve homeless veterans? Greg said he did reach out to Representative Van Orden's office to recommend expanding HUD VASH vouchers, which are federal level, so we can get some more housing vouchers, hopefully, or at least request it to house more veterans. On a little bit of a plus side, the state budget did include a 5% increase there's a CVSO grant that we get every year. And looking at the math, it looks like it result just under $700 for our county. So one more,
Another huge increase.
Yes. We will make sure to spend it wisely.
Yeah, I'm sure you will.
On the federal level, I know Greg tries to kind of give a little bit of tidbit of information about some of the things that we do. And what we are talking about here is there's been a lot of research into toxic exposures and different things that veterans were exposed to while in service. And so they're starting to find a strong link between, or especially in Gulf War veterans, with cardiac disease, in dealing with burn pit exposure, with different pills that they had to take, and different biological agents or different fuels and stuff that they've had to use. So in doing that research, it'll help support, hopefully later on, making cardiovascular issues a presumptive or an already acknowledged condition for veterans to be approved for. And then potentially, if that's their cause of death, then taking care of their spouse and children. On the financial part, we did submit the first round of our 2026 budget. Staffing, still 2 full-time employees, 1 part-time, and then our 1 volunteer 1 day a week. Any questions on any of that so far?
Any questions for Jessica? Dr. Hall?
I was just wondering, Jessica, if you know how many veterans on average currently reside at the Chippewa Falls facility, like how big of an impact for our area? Do we have any idea?
So it covers kind of this side of the state. I want to say there was like 50 some currently housed there right now that are going to have to transition out. Not entirely 100% sure on that number, but I think that's kind of what I had read.
September.
End of September. Yeah. So I'm going to move on to our grid here, our fiscal year report. Some things. So I know this is kind of in the report that's been used for a couple years now. I was kind of part of the revamping of it to kind of show some of the numbers of kind of what we do every month. And then one of the reports that we started running was to see how much income we're bringing into our county via back pay. So I kind of introduced this to Greg or proposed it to him. So well, we can show the numbers because I know some board members are really into the numbers and money and stuff. And then we've got the impact statement, which is kind of the warm fuzzy stuff for those people. So just a few things that I wanted to point out. So just in June, in back pay money, we brought in $286,000. And then for the year, we're at $919,000. Yeah, $919,000. And then I looked at our budget, which is a couple pages down, and our total office budget is $318,000. So we've almost tripled what we asked for in 6 months. So that was kind of what I wanted to point out there. And then the impact statement's actually one that I did some work on. And it goes back to honestly starting in July of 2015. So I started in this position in June of 2015. So I had been a month on the job, and veteran had passed away, and I was still kind of learning, and he had died of a heart attack, kind of a sudden thing. And a little bit of knowledge I knew, I'm like, well, Vietnam veteran, that's what he was. Heart attack, that's supposed to be automatically paid. I can do this. VA didn't agree. They kind of nitpicked on what the exact diagnosis was, and then they were saying, well, we weren't quite sure he was in Vietnam.
I didn't understand that at all. How could they not know he was in Vietnam?
Yeah. So we went through a bunch of appeals. It got very frustrating, and then we kind of ran out of steam. Like there was nothing more that I could kind of pull out of my hat to appeal with. Fast forward to 2022, and the PACT Act came about, and they listed hypertension on there. And when I went back and I looked at this file, and on that death certificate, it also said hypertension. So I'm like, okay, great. I can use this angle now. VA turned it in. VA said, no, we still aren't quite sure he served in country of Vietnam. So we're kind of back at the drawing board. The surviving spouse ended up moving to Marshfield, Wisconsin. And as she was moving, she found some of the veterans' old flight records. So she brought them into me and said, did these help at all? And I'm not sure. So I'm looking at them, and they don't say a location, but they had the word sorties on it, or sorties. So I Googled that word, and it means a short, rapid military attack involving troops or aircraft targeting enemy positions. So I then wrote to the VA again, said, well, if he's doing these sorties, wouldn't it be where they're actually in combat, which would be in Vietnam? So thankfully, that actually got them to dig a little bit deeper, and they sent it to a classified researcher. Took a couple months, that came back. And on the report from the classified researcher, it simply said approved. And that due to the classified nature of the investigation, no further documentation would be provided. So it was a win, though. So the VA did end up awarding that spouse going back to the date of death in 2015. And so it resulted in $167,000 in back pay for her. And now $1,600 a month in ongoing income, health insurance, property tax credit. And ironically, so the surviving spouse was obviously very happy and thrilled with this, but she said, she kept asking me, well, what do you think he actually did? Where was he? So this giant number I'm telling her about was not, it was exciting, but not as exciting, but she still wants to know what he did. And I said, well, I think you'll have to ask him that someday.
Right, exactly.
So any questions on that part of it?
No, and thank you for your tenacity. This is terrific.
Yeah. And I think, budget report that's in here as well. Any questions? Nothing significant to report on there.
On the VSO budget? You have it in your packet?
Otherwise, I believe that is everything that I've got. Unless there's any other questions?
Anything else for Jessica? Thank you very much. And you can either elect to stay to the end of the meeting, or we will release you to go home. I think
folks would appreciate
it. Clock out, and thank you very much. Nice to see you. You're welcome anytime also. All right, moving on to public health. KT.
All right, so we're teeing up for a very large meeting, very long meeting, so I'm going to keep this short. You did have a packet that was emailed out to you. I did get a bounce back. Are you still receiving? Wonderful. So everybody had an opportunity to look at that. A couple updates on measles. You guys are seeing that is thankfully starting to subside a little bit. Supervisor Hagan asked at one point for some other sources that I find credible. So there's a source in there from CIDRAP out of University of Minnesota. So that's in there for you as well. Did want to lift up that there's some really amazing stories and an amazing story in how transformational nurse-family partnership can be in a life. And so I wanted to call that out in a HIPAA compliant way to share just the amazing work that Sarah has done in her tenure here at Dunn County in the Nurse-Family Partnership Program. Other updates from some of our EH work that we're doing, you will see that we will come back to you with updates on fees here shortly. And one of the things that I hope you did not read through, but just in case you had some insomnia, ATCP 72, which is our regulations around hotels, motels, tourist rooming houses were included. You read the whole thing and you have insomnia. I am so sorry. It is changing substantively, and we are going to have to bring back to you new classifications
Okay.
for fees. And so that's why I wanted you to have it in your packet. Hopefully you did not kill the trees to print that out. And then just sharing, I find it funny, and probably it's on recording, I shouldn't say this, but if you look at our billboard, we are now on the other side. So we're on the same
Right.
billboard. If what replaced us was a church, letting us know that, yeah, so just the juxtaposition was not lost on me. I hope it is not lost on you as well. Any questions on either what I provided or the updates in the packet?
I just actually had a question about the water lab. I mean, you really have upped your work. Is it, are you finding it manageable to
So in
do
the
this
data-
number of, with land conservation and
Mhm.
the complaint based?
Mhm. So it's a hard push right now. They're really getting used to what this increased volume looks like. It is the kind of volume we would like to see to make that sustainable. I have asked Jeff to come back to you guys with that question on sustainability for the water
Good.
lab. And so you'll see something in your packet next month about where we're seeing
Okay.
that go. It is muscle memory. You're learning how to do these tests, and there is some benefit in volume. So if we're doing 10 at a time, it's a lot easier, much more cost effective than if we're doing one at a time. So in that way, it's a benefit. And I'm very happy to say that we are also courting some of our neighbor counties to do their transient non-community water well system testing as well. So hopefully we'll increase that year over year. But yes, 2-3 days ago, after Land and Water Conservation dropped off 2 drop-offs of their water samples, both Jeff and Amy were in the lab furiously working to prep those samples.
Yeah.
So I think in the moment it can be a lot, and I really appreciate the team for rolling up their sleeves and working together. I also really appreciate Land and Water Conservation looking to keep that lab service sustainable and choosing to use our lab instead of
Yeah.
outsourcing that. So yes, and we're getting it done.
Good, thank you. Any other questions for KT? Yes, Supervisor Hagan.
Thank you. Sorry, I have to bring up the ATCP report, the new language, because I really like the definition, the new revised definition for tourist rooming house. Because back before working here and on my previous jobs, I've spent a lot of time in Airbnb-like places and whatnot throughout the country. And to see this being considered to kind of bring them in line with more commercial rental places, I think is, to me, fantastic to see. So, because, yeah, you can gamble and rent a really not a great place. So I'm
Sure.
happy to see this.
Yep. And we do actively look for Airbnbs, VRBOs to make sure that we know where they are and what they're doing, because we want to make sure that we've got safe, even overnight, non-long-term residences for folks to stay. Yeah.
Absolutely. We were at a place in New Orleans we were going to stay at. We were driving from up here all the way down there.
Sure.
And we got into the state of Louisiana when they contacted someone else that we were working with, and they said, "Oh, you're going to be there? No, we're going to find you someplace else."
Oh.
Because it apparently had a reputation. So thank you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you, Supervisor Hagan. Anything else, KT?
Nope. Without anything else, oh, rather, there is one other thing that I want to share. Yes, I shared right before the meeting. We were notified yesterday that we were awarded the Vital Strategies grant. It'll come out to about $99,000, which is fantastic. And it is a very quick turnaround from August to August. And so you'll remember that you had that letter of support
Yep.
that was integral to making that happen. So thank you for that. And we are in the minority. I have heard from many of my colleagues around the Western region, and many folks submitted applications and did not receive it. So kudos to Lindsay and the whole team working together to really focus on harm reduction strategies in a peer-led and evidence-based way. So thank you so much for that. You will see a budget adjustment next month that will not only account for those funds, but the matching opioid settlement dollars as well. And then we'll build the rest of it into our 26 budget.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yep.
Do you want to talk at all about budget?
Sure. Love to. So you will see the first iteration of our budget come forward in the budget workshop. And so right now, the health department is showing an excess. We will, of course, tighten we'll tighten things up as we move forward. A couple things to be aware of. Beata and I had a meeting that she was not able to keep, and so she did some work for me, and I appreciate that, but I was not at the table with her. And so there were some assumptions built into that budget that were not accurate. So for example, we know that we are going to have reductions in many of those pass-through dollars from the feds, emergency preparedness, immunization, and we're waiting to see where the other ones fall. So she made the assumption that the percentages would stay the same.
Oh,
Absolutely not. We are not going to do travel and conferences if I can't pay for staff. So we'll move those things around, and you'll have, like I said, kind of a finer point on that in the second iteration after you guys have had an opportunity at the budget workshop, and then the feedback has come back from the board on where we need to either align with priority-based budgeting or make reductions based on a straight percentage. So just know that you will see something that is not within our means, and that we will look to modify that. We are supplementing the 2026 budget heavily with what is called the Public Health Innovation Grant. It was meant to be a 5-year grant to support innovation. Due to federal cuts, it is actually going to support base funding. And there is still a little room. I'm hopeful that I can hold on to some of that for 27, but if need be, we'll supplement that fully. So that's the 26 budget. You also have in your packet our monthly financials to date. What we are watching closely is that we are seeing and I'm grateful for it, an increase in both revenue for reproductive health and revenue for our public health lab, our water lab. And hopefully those trends continue and they show where we're at. We are watching a couple things in especially associated with folks that were supposed to go into the opioid grant, to make sure that their full cost. You guys know that folks have their hourly costs, but if they take benefits, that almost, in some cases with our lower wage earners, almost doubles what the cost is. So we have a couple folks where their hourly went, but their fringe did not. So we're working with finance to get some of those things straightened out. So I am not worried about what you're seeing. You do see that we are to the good minimally, and we'll continue to get closer as the approximations close that gap.
okay.
Any questions on the finances? It
Any
was
questions on
presented.
finances for KT? All right. So you're off the hook. Thank you. At some point in, the two of you can share, we do need to talk. I mean, there was a document in our packet about the Medicaid cuts and those implications. But this meeting was too long to put it on the agenda, but we need to have a look at that too. And thank you for sharing that. Anything else? All right. Department of Human Services.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I had my report in your packet, some highlights there. Our budget will be part of the August meeting, and we'll have a public hearing on that. As part of that, there's, as KT said, we will be going through that again. I see we just got something from Beata this evening with additional information, so we'll continue to needle through that and do what we need to do with that. So we'll get that out to you in plenty of time for you to review. Gave some shout outs. Denise Kisa is retiring tomorrow, and she's been here for a while, and really been the front door of our ADRC. So I had to add that to even though we have people coming and going a lot, she's one of those that everyone knows because she's been at the front door and just an amazing worker. So I wanted to shout that out. I think I'm the one that put all the documents in your packet on the changes from the budget and Medicaid and all of those kinds of things.
Helpful.
Yeah, and so they were also interpretations of that. So I tried to give you some highlights in my report, kind of things to focus on. I did want to share, there's so many good things in here, but very few actually hit our budget. So, the funding pieces, such as a mental health campus coming to the Chippewa Valley for Rogers Behavioral Health. Fantastic, right?
Yeah.
So that is great news. We won't have to travel across the state, hopefully, all of those kinds of things. So, maybe a little bit in transportation for law enforcement, those kinds of things. Wonderful services for the community. Not really impacting our budget, though,
Sure.
right? So other things that were in here, substance abuse treatment center, psychiatric residential treatment facilities, those kinds of things. That may a little bit, if once they're built, obviously those take years to kind of put into place, but once they're built, maybe that would be a cheaper option than hospitalization or those kinds of things, depending on. So, but they're not, there is not a whole lot that actually hit our budget in a good way. We did, one of them that was positive though for us with the budget was a 5% increase in base for ADRC funding. So we will be hearing, they told us in August, probably what that really means. I've had conversations with Tracy regarding that. You'll see in our budget next month that we are requesting that the dementia care specialist become full-time in Dunn County. She currently is a Chippewa County employee. Well, we would open it up for posting.
Sure.
And if she applies, yeah. So she would be delighted to be here in Dunn, but or one county, I should say. She would be delighted to work in one county because of the issues of, you're doing things multiple times, 2 different computers, 2 different staff meetings, 2 different everything, right? So the idea of one county would delight her. But we currently pay $40,000 comes out of our allocation from GWAR for that position, and it automatically goes to Chippewa. So if we no longer have an MOU with Chippewa, that 40,000 would come here. Any new dollars that we would receive from this would be able to go to that position, although it probably is not enough to fully fund that. So there will probably be some tax levy in there that we would be asking for. And I know that this is a really hard time to be asking for that. But dementia care and the resources that families and communities are needing has just escalated. And how do we have people in their homes with this without having to go to a higher level is really important. And that's what Carla does, is go into the homes and see if there's anything they can do to be able to prolong that if needed. And so obviously that's something that we're really looking to as a high need and continues to just grow. So I really wanted to lift that up and share with you that we may have a little more funding coming for that, but it probably won't be the full. I had a guest speaker on our Focus 30 with Paula last Friday, and Diane was the
star.
special guest. And it was so much fun to be able to have people see her, you know, she can see their faces, have that interaction, talk about what's going on, kind of, you know, hot in this performance management topics. And then she had some questions that she answered about all, you know, like her values and all those things she's proud of and stuff. So that was really fun to be able to have them have access to her. They usually don't have that. And then I just shared my little personal piece. You know, I think it's important. We talk
Great.
all the time in the department about how do you stay resilient, take care of your mental health, all of those things. So a weekend on the Chippewa River was really good for my mental health.
And
So
you
it was
really
fun.
slept on the sandbar?
Yeah, we did in a tent. Yeah, you see the tents, we
Jeez.
did. So it was fun, but yeah, I might have been a little tired afterwards, but yeah, my old body, but it was a great time. So I just thought it was important for you to know that we do try to do things and on our own time to be able to stay resilient, right? I shared all the documents with you, right, and highlighted some of them for you with Medicaid, Medicare, but due to the late hour, we'll go through
Yeah,
that
we'll do
another
it another
day.
time.
But yeah, just trying to get that for you. Are there any questions, anything that just really popped out at you that you're
Any
like, I need
question
to
for
know
Paula?
with the docs?
Certainly not.
Okay, and then financial, and
Yep.
to move
Okay,
into
good.
that. Like, did you fall over when you seen this number?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we like it.
Yeah, I
Like
did.
it.
Jerry got a hold of us and said, you know, look at where we're at. And I'm like, is this real? Like, could we really be here? And she said, yes, we had a couple months that we were behind in children's long-term support waiver billing, and that revenue came in and really
Oh,
helped
great.
move the mark here. And so we're delighted with that piece. And then looking at the projections, you know, that's where it's showing we're at right now. So fingers crossed, things continue to remain that way and we come into the good, which I never imagined at the beginning of this year. So
And particularly with the out-of-home
Yes.
placements that,
yes,
yeah,
yep. So
yeah,
Um,
way good.
yeah, so I'm doing the happy dance with that one. That's all I have.
Okay. Anything on the finances?
With the change with the juvenile correction rate, did that take effect with the biennium on July 1st?
Yes, from what we know. But the funny part is, this individual set to be discharged here in July. So,
Okay.
like that number was like, what? Where did that come from? Right? You know?
I know, right?
And so, and you know, the services that we're putting in the community to keep that individual in the community is about $30,000 a month. So it's about the same as
I know, right?
I'm like, it's not ethical to keep them there if you know, shouldn't be there, but you know, funding wise.
Right.
Um,
Dr. Hall.
So did I also see in there that another part was that the governor wants them to look at how we fund these
Mhm.
placements and maybe that's really exciting.
Like a really good idea.
That's a really good idea. So I was excited to see that. So
Yeah. So we'll see in the next, because that's what he said, take these 2 years to really look at
Exactly.
this process. So we'll see. We'll have a new governor and we'll see where that
Yeah.
all goes. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Excellent reports from everybody. All right, moving on to item 10A, which is our DHS vouchers. This is for June. The bottom line is $748,822.28. Any clarification on this anybody needs? All right, I would like a motion to note review of the June DHS vouchers.
I so move.
Dr. Hall moves. Is there a second? Supervisor Bashan seconds. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the vouchers are noted for June. And the last item is a budget adjustment for human services. Do you want to offer any insights?
We received additional funding in those programs. It was the CST program, which is wraparound services for youth. and families of 15,000, 11,100 in the ADRC, and then in economic support for childcare administration. So that's, yeah, kind of typical of what we
Yep, kind of
bring it.
typical.
Yep.
A good budget adjustment, but thank you for that
Mhm.
clarification. Again, I could use a motion to approve. Ms. Rudy
So moved.
moves approval.
Second.
Dr. Hall seconds. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye. Did I turn it off? Oh, how interesting. I should look, right? The Dunn County Employee Picnic, Thursday, August 7th. You're invited, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. There's going to be food. There's going to be a dunk tank. I think Chris gets to avoid it this year.
I did.
Do you?
Claiming a bad hip.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I know, a really expensive bed hip. Anyway, come join us. It's fun. I know. I know. And maybe there'll be surprises about that. Who knows? But yeah, everybody come.
You can repeat, but, well, in the preliminary audit numbers, DHS is. This is worth seeing. It is. In the preliminary 2024 audit numbers, DHS is returning $1.2 million to the general fund.
Well done.
Yay.
Well done.
That is good
$1.2
news.
million. And as you see tonight, we need it. So great management from all of our departments. Thank you very much. And without objection, we are adjourned.